Hello! If you're an online teacher, chances are you've run into one of these issues before. So either you've had a difficult student, a bad review, a parent that's way too involved, or just a terrible connection. So I have been teaching online for over 3.5 years, and I've definitely run into all of these issues. And today I'm going to teach you how to start those difficult conversations, sometimes awkward, or maybe you're unsure how to say it properly, with your clients, which are your parents. But first, let me introduce myself. My name is Yvonne. I am hey.misskay on Instagram and heymisskay on Facebook. I was a brick and mortar teacher for 5 years. I've been teaching for VIPKid for 3.5 years, and now I'm teaching on Outschool. So I wanted to put this video together because I know that these situations happen in any online platform. So if you're working for other companies like Palfish, Data ABC, Magic Ears, any online ESL company, or even if you're working for Outschool, these things can happen to you. And I want to get you ready and get you prepared for those situations so that you can start or continue those conversations with your parents. Before I jump in, I want to remind you of 2 important rules. Number 1, remember to always keep it positive. When you're writing to the parents, keep it positive. Don't place blame on anyone. And number 2, remember that you are a business, you're an independent contractor, and that you want customers, you want people to book you. So if you approach this in a negative way, you might get more bad reviews, and which will lead to you not getting booked later on, right? So keep those 2 things in mind. Keep it positive and remember that you are a business. I also want to take this time to remind you to please hit subscribe. This channel is all about getting back to the basics of good online teaching, as well as helping people through the hiring process with VIPKid and Outschool. So if you want to see more videos on online teaching, hit subscribe and hit the bell if you want to get notified every time I upload a new video. Okay, so now let's jump in. Okay, the first situation, probably one of the most frustrating ones, is when you have parents that are too involved. They correct the child before you can. They might even give wrong answers, or they simply are answering for the child. This can be really frustrating as a teacher because you're like, just give the student a chance to answer, to try on their own, to make mistakes. It's okay. So you want to address that. You don't just want to let it go and keep teaching the same student with the same parents, answering for them or giving them wrong answers, or just being too involved in the learning process. And I'm going to teach you how to approach this and how to start a conversation with them about this. So here are the 4 things that you need to keep in mind when you are responding to parents or starting that conversation with parents. The first thing that you want to do is that you want to praise them, actually. You want to praise them for their interest that they have in their child's learning. You need to acknowledge the fact that they want their child to do the best, and that is a great thing. But then you also want to remind them that children learn the best when they try it on their own, when they are independent learners, when they make mistakes and learn from them. So sometimes that is the difficult part for parents, is to see their child fail and to let it go. You want to acknowledge that they want their child to do well, like I just mentioned, and then you also want to stress the importance of giving some wait time, of giving the child time to think, process what was just being asked, and then to respond. So those are some things that you want to put in your feedback as you are writing to your parents. And I'm going to read to you an example of I found a good way to start that conversation. Now, this is from a teacher that teaches with VIPKid. She's going to be known as Marin L, and I'm just going to read what she wrote. Now, if you go in the description box, I'm going to leave you a document with example feedbacks for you so that you can just use for your own feedback when you are addressing these things with your parents. So let me read it to you. Thank you so much for being a supportive parent. It is important for Bao Bao to answer independently so that he will retain the lesson content and will gain more confidence in his English skills. This may mean that there is a little more time between the question and Bao Bao's answers. but this enables him some time to process in English and answer independently. So that is one example. Now I also have another example from Jody Atkinson. She is also a VIPKid teacher, but again, this can be used as for Outschool as well, if ever you come across this problem. I find that it is important to ask the student a question and then give them a few seconds of quiet to let them think about it. This gives them the time they need to remember the vocabulary words they know and the sentence structures they are learning and put them together. Once they begin to discover that they know the words to use and how to answer, their confidence grows and they become more eager to learn. So that is just another example. I have a few more in the document, so if you want to go grab that, just click in the description box. I will have it linked there and you can just download it for yourself and use it. Okay, now this second unpleasant situation is getting a bad review. If you get 4 stars or 4 apples or 4 flowers or whatever, 4 diamonds or less, so 4, 3, 2, even 1, what do you do? How do you address this? So first of all, again, don't write back angry. The second thing is to get it translated. Use different things like Google Translate or other translators online to see what it translates to, because sometimes what you read isn't exactly what you think it means. So get it translated a few times on different platforms so that you can get a better idea of what is being said. Then you also want to maybe send it to someone, a friend, that can tell them how they view it. Again, sometimes, especially if it's a 4 apple review or whatever, 4-star, you might read it. So this is mainly for ESL companies because it's translated from Chinese to English. And then you might read it and view it a certain way, and someone else might read the same feedback and view it a different way. So get a second opinion. Okay, and so this is how you want to respond. If you actually have the chance to respond to the parent, you want to, again, keep it positive. Don't be negative about it or passive aggressive. Don't get defensive. Simply inquire a little more about the feedback. So ask them what you could have done better or what they would have liked to see more or less of. And then that will give you a better idea of why you got that review. Also, you want to actually learn from it, read it, and rewatch your lesson if you can. Rewatch it and see if they were right. Maybe they were right. I had, a 3 apple review once, and I went back in and they said that I didn't ask the student to speak enough. And so I watched my lesson again and I had to completely agree. I was just okay with 1-word answers instead of asking my student to answer in complete sentences. So really, he didn't have as much output as he should have. So I definitely learned from that review. I didn't just say, oh no, there's no way I could ever be wrong. We are all learning. We are always learning. No matter how many classes you have taught, there's maybe those off classes that you just didn't do as well as you normally do. And that's okay, as long as you learn from them. And then let them know that you have the child's best interests at heart. So if you get a 3 apple review or less, and in my situation, I didn't let the child speak enough, I need to acknowledge that and say, thank you for pointing that out. I am more than willing to do a better job next time, right? I'm going to make sure that I get bow to answer in complete sentences for every slide. Let them know that you want the child to do well and you appreciate the feedback. And now I know sometimes it can be a negative thing and it's not true what they said. So then that's when you need your company's help and you need them to back you up in that situation. But for anything else, just learn from those classes and from that feedback that you get from parents. Okay, situation number 3, poor behavior from your students. So maybe you have a child that isn't listening, isn't focused, keeps leaving the classroom, is being inappropriate. Those things can all happen and have happened to me. And there is a way, again, to respond. There is a way to start this conversation with the parents without being aggressive or without being negative. And again, I'm going to teach you how. So keeping it positive, you want to point out the students' strengths. So even if there aren't many, maybe they have a great smile, you want to start with that. Make sure that you start out positive. And then you also want to acknowledge that these lessons are important to the parents. They are paying good money for these lessons. So you can write that in there, like, I know how important these lessons are to you. And that's when you explain that in order for Bao Bao or Johnny or whoever to get the most out of these lessons, these are the things that you will have to do, or that Johnny will have to do. So you're going to give them examples or different strategies to get that child to actually get something out of the lesson. So I'm going to just read off a few examples of things that you can suggest and say to the parents. So here's an example. If I have a child that has so much energy, always bouncing off the walls, I can acknowledge that and I can say, wow, Bao Bao has so much energy. It's so great to see. I know that these lessons are really important to you and to Bao Bao, but I think that he will need some support to stay focused on the lesson so that he can get the most out of his English classes. And then, so I can say someone needs to sit with Bao Bao to help him stay focused. In another situation, I can say Bao Bao should sit at the table when taking lessons because I noticed that he was more focused this way. Another one, Bao Bao should leave his toys in another room so that he is completely focused on the lesson. Bao Bao needs to be looking at the teacher so that he can understand the instructions. Or I can say, please review the vocabulary words before the next class so that Bao Bao is ready. So maybe he wasn't focused and he needs to you need to make sure that he knows those words before he takes his next lesson. You can also say, I would greatly appreciate if you spoke to Bao Bao about sticking his tongue out at me. This is a sign of disrespect in North America. So that's just a very specific example of maybe that was something inappropriate, and you can address that and just explain why. Again, never in a negative tone. And then one more thing that I have written down just as an example, please remind Bao Bao the importance of speaking in class. So those are the examples for students that aren't participating or maybe being rude or exactly that, not focused. And that's, I find, the one that I see the most is students that are just not into the lesson and not focused and playing with things or keep walking away from class. So those are just some quick examples of sentences that you can write in there, and it, as a parent, I wouldn't be offended in any way if it was written that way. Okay, and now the fourth and last situation, IT issues. Maybe you have a terrible connection or you can't hear the child. What do you do without saying that it's your fault that, like saying, mine was fine, my internet was fine, I don't know why we kept losing connection. You don't really have to word it that way. You can word it in a more positive way without blaming anyone's connection. So first of all, take screenshots if your connection is bad, or if you keep losing the child because their connection is bad. Keep taking screenshots throughout your lesson to show that, hey, I'm still on and I'm ready to teach, and yet my student isn't here. So make sure you do that. And then in your feedback, make sure that you encourage your student to review the material that you did not see, that you did not get to because of the poor connection. Now, when I have a bad connection with a student, I can actually, for VIPKid, ask for help and ask someone to come help and see if they can make a better connection for us. And I let the parents know, either in the chat box or either to my students, I will say, I asked VIPKid to help me. So I let them know that I'm doing this currently right now to resolve this situation. You can also in the feedback suggest that your student wears headphones if you can hear them properly, or that they sit closer to the router. That also helps a lot. So these are things that you can mention in the feedback or actually verbally. You can say, can you sit closer? Again, router, it might not be something that they know, so it depends on the level of your student, but if it's on Outschool, you can easily say that and they should know what you're talking about so that you get that better connection, and then you're not losing all of this time. In my feedback, I always write, unfortunately, today we did not have a good connection. We were able to do this, 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 and this. Please review this with your child because we were unable to get to those slides. And again, on Outschool, it can be the same thing. If you had one student that had a terrible connection, you can go in and write that to the parents and say, unfortunately, there was a bad connection today. He was able to participate in this, this, and this, but he kept, leaving the classroom because of the bad connection, and this is what he missed. So just be honest, just let them know what happened. Okay, and that's it for my video today. I know there are other situations that you might be in that I did not address today, but the two key concepts here is to keep it positive and to focus on the student, focus on their learning rather than what happened, and just put it back on that, always spin it in a positive way. If you've enjoyed this video, please leave me a thumbs up. It really helps my channel. Hit subscribe, and if you want, you can check out my video on how to write good feedback to get good feedback from parents. I will link it above. And then you can also check out my video on comparing VIPKid and Outschool if you are a VIPKid teacher thinking of maybe joining Outschool, or vice versa, maybe you're teaching on Outschool and you would like to hear a little bit more about VIPKid. So thank you so much. Have a wonderful day. Until next time.